Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another fan meetups, care of Fan Expo Canada. We are your fan meetup ambassadors with an S. I'm Jeremy Johnston.
For the first time, freshly new fan ambassador, Angelo Corsino.
But, you've been doing it the whole time. We are also, admins at Unite the Factions, a community organization that is all about bringing Dungeons and Dragons Adventures League organized play games to people in the Greater Toronto Area or Southern Ontario, as well as online via our Discord server, and hopefully coming to you at Fan Expo in October. Yeah. Okay, so today, unlike our usual topics that are talking purely about Dungeons and Dragons, and usually with some tie-in to Adventures League, we're actually taking D&D conversation.
Throwing the script away.
Yeah, we're throwing it away. So we're going to be talking about Magic the Gathering, and we're going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons and how they've been coming together over the last few years in both forms. So just to give you a bit of background, what is Magic the Gathering? Well, it is actually the world's most popular collectible card game. They kind of started it all in 1993, and it was started by a company called Wizards of the Coast, whom you may have heard of. Yes, we will refer to them as WotC. And the company, has been, retooling this game ever since, and it's still going strong. They also were famous for having created the original American version of the Pokemon trading card game in 1999. So Magic the Gathering had 6 years on Pokemon, at least in North America, as Pokemon was as a collectible trading card game was developed in Japan in 1996. But WotC, kind of totally blew past their wildest expectations of how popular Pokemon would be for them, and eventually, some years later, Nintendo, would take the licensing to the Pokemon Company, and Wizards of the Coast, wasn't producing those cards anymore. But just a little bit before that, something other magical would happen. And that is where we get to Dungeons and Dragons. So what's Dungeons and Dragons, Angelo?
So it's the most popular tabletop role-playing game that originated way back in 1974 by a company called Tactical Studies and Rules.
Or TSR for short.
TSR for short. It was purchased by Wizards of the Coast in 1997, which is 4 years after they had started Magic the Gathering, and 1 year after their Pokemon explosion. 2 years before their Pokemon explosion.
Yeah, so they were already kind of, thinking that they really wanted to get into all sorts of different types of gaming at Wizards of the Coast. And early on, there were a lot of people that were worried, or just, a lot of hate in between, why are you trying to put Magic and Dungeons and Dragons together? And so, there was a lot of press at the time that would say, oh, we're not trying to do that, Magic is Magic, D&D is D&D. So, but, there's always been a few, those two camps, right? There's been people that don't want to see them mixed together, the purists of one camp of, Magic players or D&D players. But then there's, other geeky people like myself who have been playing both, the kind of person that likes Star Trek and Star Wars,
To be completely honest, I started playing both games under 3 years ago. Well, actually, just over 3 years for D&D.
Oh, okay. So I started playing Magic the Gathering when I was in high school in 1995, probably, maybe 96. So I've been playing since almost the beginning. And I've been fortunate enough to have some friends to play with. I've never really gotten into the organized player tournaments or anything. I've just been drafting most sets of the last 20 years easily. And prior to that, I didn't know what drafting was, so we were just buying cards or decks, and it's a great hobby. You can build decks that are an expression of all sorts of different ways to play. But this is not really a video about Magic the Gathering. There's tons of videos all about that. But of course, if you have questions, feel free to pop them into the Q&A channel here. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can always throw in a question in the comments, and we'll do our best to respond.
All right, so Jeremy, what's Magic the Gathering, and how do you play it?
Okay, so at a high level, because again, we're not going to go too deep into it. Magic the Gathering is a card game where every card pretty much tells you what it does, and as such, there are kind of some rules that surround phases of play and what is sometimes called the stack. And so, what is the order with which things will happen in the game when they start to collide? And so, again, it's really important to read the cards that you're playing in Magic the Gathering so you know what they do. And from that, you get into, again, it's really a game of interrupting and exception-based rules. And through that, you're basically you're a planeswalker of sorts, a magic user kind of in between the different planes of existence in the universe or multiverse of Magic the Gathering. And you have a life total of 20 hit points, which uses a 20-sided dice or die, which is actually called a life counter,
Or
because
spin
you are,
down.
or a spin down die, yes, because you are able to turn the die right beside the number to which follows it, versus the kind of randomness of Dungeons and Dragons D20 die. And generally, the rule of the game to win is get your opponent down to 0 on their life counter. Now there are exceptions to that rule, but those are the basics. And it's really a game of resource management and strategy, because you do have a resource called mana, for which you use to cast spells. And then, because it is Magic.
And there are 5 different colors of mana, and then a technical 6 which is called colorless, which you can use for when a card doesn't have colored mana on it, or has colored mana and colorless requirement. They have different card types: sorcery, instant, creature, planeswalker, artifact. A couple more that I'm probably forgetting. I'm not a Magic expert like Jeremy.
I'm not an expert by any means, nor would I pretend to be. I'm just a enthusiast, just like for D&D. And so people like, playing Magic the Gathering because you can come up with a lot of creative combinations in between all the cards that are out there. There are different formats of play, many. There's standard play, which is a rotating series of cards that are allowable to be played with, over the past, more recent years. And as cards get older, they kind of fade away from standard. Although a core set, might bring some cards back into play. But again, you can put together some really cool combinations of spells and creature types and such. Yeah, I mean, there's probably hundreds of thousands of cards by now. So I'm not sure if we're into the millions, but so there's a lot of combinations you can put together, in either a 60 card deck where you can have a maximum of 4 cards of one specific card, to something I've more recently kind of figured out the naming for, is a singleton deck where you can only have one of those cards, which is what you often find in commander decks, which is a different way to play. So, Magic the Gathering is a ton of fun. It's obviously best played with other people. There are physical cards to play with, but there are also a couple different ways you can play online. So there's a very old system that I would not recommend getting into at this point in time called Magic the Gathering Online. But the more recent iteration, of which there have been many in between, and many console and PC Planeswalker games, the more recent one is called Magic the Gathering Arena.
That is all of my experience playing Magic the Gathering. I have never played Magic with a physical paper card.
Yeah, so Magic the Gathering Arena is actually free to play.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually, if you put in the time, you can certainly get very far. It's not really pay to win, because there's no way to pay to win with Magic. Either you got some cool combos going on, or maybe you just don't know. But the more you play, the more packs you can unlock and cards and such. And you can, even as you open up packs, of which you can earn them for free on Arena, you can get kind of blank cards that
They're
you
called
can
wild cards on Arena.
for crafting. Yeah, so of the different rarities of cards that there are. So yeah, I've tried Arena when it first came out, and that was kind of pre-COVID, and I was just like, I love cards. I love the physical cards, So I didn't really give her a go. But with D&D and Arena coming together last month, I've been playing a little bit too much in the past month. Yeah, I'm sure anytime Angelo's looking at me on Discord, it says Jeremy's playing Magic the Gathering Arena.
I haven't cycled back to it yet. I haven't played Arena in a few months now.
Okay. Do you want to just put your hand over your camera there, Angelo? Looks like you're getting a windowed effect.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of that, but it's not working.
Yeah, maybe it's a smear on the camera or something.
I haven't touched it. It must be something with the light.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's better. Much better. Cool.
It's just the light from the outside window.
Yes. J.J. Abrams moved your camera. Okay, so that's quite a bit about Magic and Arena. If you haven't tried it, give it a go. There's lots of tutorials there for you to play. And of course, lots of videos and blog entries you can Google to find out more about it.
So now to tie back in Dungeons & Dragons, Dungeons & Dragons is also a game where you can kind of put together combos, except it's more usually focused on storytelling and improvisation. But it also definitely has a strategic kind of element to it when you get into combat, whether when you're playing on a grid, more so than Theater of the Mind. But there's definitely some strategy. And a lot of the rules in D&D read like the rules in Magic cards, where you read them literally, and specific on the current thing you're looking at beats the general rule for the game every time.
Yeah, there's definitely exceptions to rules that can occur. And even from having played with rules designer Jeremy Crawford, he's like, have the book there, read it out, if you want to cast a spell or something like that. One of my favorite examples is one of my favorite spells for my favorite class. It's called Detect Creature, otherwise known as Eldritch Blast, because the spell says, you're not going to be using that spell to blast open doors, because it only connects with creatures. So I usually
if you try to target a creature, it'll fire.
Yes.
If you try to target an object, it won't fire.
So I've used it in adventures before to hit a tree, and it hit the tree, so I knew it wasn't a tree, right?
Yeah, you try to blast a treasure chest, and it's a mimic, it'll fire.
Detect mimic. There you go, Angelo. Yeah. We'll talk about mimic later. But mimic is a great monster in Dungeons and Dragons.
It's even an okay card on Arena.
Yeah, and it can make itself look like almost anything. It could be a door, it could be a table, it could be a treasure chest. It could be any real object, and then start walking around and trying to eat you. But Dungeons and Dragons certainly has some tactics to it and some strategy. If you really get into the wargaming and grid type battles, I mean, outside of, combat, there aren't a lot of rules to D&D, right? Other than, you want to do something, the dungeon master might ask you to roll a die to determine if you're successful or not. But, like Angela said, it's really about shared storytelling and improvisation and such. So how do you put these two things together, right? To me, it's a match made in heaven, maybe even a match made on earth, because it's just so awesome. Because, Magic the Gathering magic is in the name. And obviously with Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards and all sorts of stuff like that, there's magic in Dungeons and Dragons too. So there have been a lot of similar elements within both games in terms of, creatures or monsters and spells, over the years. So, I mean, I've been wondering why it hasn't happened since the 90s. Like, I just don't get it.
It's funny because, like I said, I got into both of them within the last 3.5 years. Magic about 2.5 years ago, and D&D about 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, well, it's a great time to get into both. Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is pretty easy to pick up, for just about anybody. And ultimately, it's a game where to have fun. So if you don't want to play by the rules, I mean, obviously you don't have to, unless you're in some sort of organized environment. With Magic the Gathering, though, I mean, you really do have to play by the rules, unfortunately.
The cards don't allow to, and the game doesn't work if you don't.
It is a very technical game. Yes, glad to see we have some other fans here like myself. Yeah, and Magic the Gathering, like I said, is kind of on the up and up as well. I do have some complaints, which I'll share, but
you have like two.
Yeah, something like that.
So, what kind of source books have they released for D&D that are based in Magic the Gathering?
Okay, so before we get to that, I wanted to share, and hopefully we can see it on camera here, that there are setting books for Magic the Gathering. James Wyatt and others put together the lore. Like, for example, here's the book, The Art of Magic the Gathering. This one is for Ravnica. It is kind of a thick book. It has a lot of the art from the cards within the book, as well as a lot of setting information. Over the years, Magic the Gathering, the team has put together a lot of lore, to kind of put together a story for, how the cards kind of work together. And like, this is their Bible that they would work from, and they, tidied it up a bit and published it. One of the former members of the D&D team was on the Magic team and helped write that, like I mentioned, James Wyatt. And so a couple of years ago, actually 3 years ago, we got the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, an official settings book. It is the first. It has the cool Magic the Gathering logo there, along with D&D on its spine. And so rather than an adventure book, this is a setting book. It has a really short adventure, like most of the setting books do, but it gives you different race options, class options, new monsters, all sorts of stuff. And they just didn't limit it to the book. WizKids came out with minis for it, which look amazing.
The Death Pact Angel is really good.
Yeah, like really, really cool minis that went along with that. We're gonna get to see one.
I'm gonna see if I can find it really quick, but while you're talking.
Yeah, okay, no problem. So yeah, they also came out with a really cool dice set that actually was 12-sided and had all the guilds on it. So really cool die set for that. And then more recently, I believe it was last year, but COVID makes me think that it was much longer ago. It came out
like ages.
Yeah, Mythic Odysseys of Theros. Theros is kind of like a Greek gods themed Magic the Gathering plane. And D&D came out with a book for it as well. Again, adding a lot of setting information, new races, all that cool stuff. And, I want to say Hydra, but it's got a cooler name that I have trouble pronouncing. So I'm not even going to try. And of course, they came out with minis for this too, and the mini for this is really cool and hard to find. I'm still trying to find it. So, Forward Games, if you ever get it back in stock, I'm coming for you. Okay, so those are some D&D books, but even before they got to those books, along with the art of the Magic the Gathering books, they put out some digital Adobe Acrobat or PDF documents called Planeshift that went out with a lot of the early art of Magic the Gathering books. My favorite are Zendikar, because it gave us our first like vampire playable character race, even though it's not like official content. It's using 5th edition rules, so you can certainly work that into your non-Adventures League campaign. And it also had some ideas on how to reskin existing monsters from the monster manual to be creatures from the plane of Zendikar. There's no such thing as too many minis. That's like saying I have too much dice. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, I know.
Too many magic cards. You can't have too many.
I'm 100% lying. You can never have too many minis.
Mm-mm.
People buy dice, not me. I buy minis.
Yes. So, the other one that I really liked had a subclass that was basically like you were the Planeswalker Chandra. So you could beat fire immunity even and turn that into fire resistance with that
huge,
source
by the
for
way.
subclass. Oh yeah. Very awesome stuff.
Yeah, I can't find my Death Pact Angels. I have 2 of them. I just don't know where they are.
Oh yeah, Eldrazi too. Oh yeah, I was totally gonna say that as well. Thanks for that, Zedar. So they came out with a bunch of them. Just look up Planeshift D&D on Google or Bing or something like that, and you'll find those PDFs, and they're free. They're still out there, and you can check that out. We'll put the link on YouTube when we do these publishing and such. Okay, so that brought us to a new book that's coming out this year. There's a new Magic set that came out this year called Strixhaven in the School of Mages, and they are coming out with a Strixhaven book to go along with it, the Curriculum of Chaos. Mm-hmm. I think it sounds like a really cool game, book, to throw out there. Dare I say HP? And I'm not talking about hit points, but it's a school of magic.
It was
I'm
very
wizardry.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting once we get some more information on it. Maybe we'll talk about it when it gets published or something like that.
For sure.
But it is something that we're hotly anticipating, and I'm sure there'll be lots of cool minis. The Magic set's really cool, so I'm just a little disappointed that they don't come out with the Magic set and the D&D book at the same time. I mean,
they've got their separate release dates.
Yeah, I know, but it would be cool to get them at the same time, or even some sort of cool promo, like buy a box or buy 2 boxes, get the book.
You just want promos because you want to buy both of them at the same time.
I'm gonna buy them regardless.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. You just wanted them.
I just want cool tie-ins, because I love D&D, love Magic, and now they're coming together, right? So, again, so exciting. So let's take a look here. I got a box.
Yeah, it's a whole 10 draft booster packs.
Yeah, so this is what's called a bundle. It used to be called a fat pack, but I guess somebody got upset, and makes sense. And so they changed the name. And so now it is called a bundle. And it comes in its own little box that you can put the cards in when you're done. Comes with land, comes with a life counter. Although this says it's a special oversized D20. Oh yeah, it says on the back that it comes with a bunch of stuff inside.
Oh yeah, it's got a cool spit. That's an interesting life track.
Yeah, because you actually have to roll a D20 in this
there's a lot of
which is not a life, the life counter or spin down.
There's a lot of cards in the set that roll a D20 to get XYZ effects based on what you roll.
Yeah, so again, I love Magic, I love D&D, so I can't say anything bad about it. So sure, there might be some people that are, but it's certainly worth checking out. If not on Arena, buy some cards. And yes, we did have someone also mention that there is a great tie-in of 5 PDF adventures for Dungeons and Dragons that tie in with it, which is really cool. And you could say that Forgotten Realms and Magic are like really coming together, but I think that they're saying canon-wise, not really.
Well, it makes sense to not blend the canons, right?
No, but I mean, like Marvel is going into the multiverse. I mean,
Yeah, but I mean, I guess you
with
could
the
say
multiverse,
they're all different planes, sure, different.
they could be alternate realities.
Yeah, but still, so it gets complicated.
I guess, yeah. So
You can always homebrew it. It just doesn't have to be
oh
actual
well,
canon.
with homebrew, you can put anything
Yeah,
with
exactly.
anything. I mean, yeah.
You just get in your Spelljammer and you fly over to Theros.
Yeah. Oh, and you run into Unicron. That's a
Yeah,
Hasbro
why not?
property. Yeah, My Little Ponies too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just with their properties alone, they could do a lot of fun stuff, right?
I think they've. I know my friend has a crossover, but now we're getting off track.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, so Magic the Gathering as a set. So what's some cool stuff that's been changing with Magic the Gathering? Okay, so we have full frame art cards. So I mean, I know my camera's not the greatest, and I'm very amateur, but here's a Magic card. Okay, you just
can't really see anything on it at all. But yeah, that's the jump spell.
Okay, so yeah, so it has a black border, shows you the image of the card, has some text, all
got
that
the
cool
set,
stuff.
Got what kind of card it is and the set that it's from on it.
Yeah, so that's kind of a regular card. But now we're getting into there's 3 types of packs that you can open. These are packs that you tear open and take the cards out. Okay, so on Arena, it's different. You don't get any of that kind of stuff. There is just a standard pack. But there are 3 types of packs these days for Magic the Gathering. There used to be 1, and this is my complaint. Why does there have to be more than 1? Like, why? I don't know.
You know why? It's because the people want the collector stuff.
Okay, so I love drafting. That's probably the format I play the most, and yes, because of money. But at the same time, I mean, the cards are so beautiful, so yes, I'm going to spend my money on them. But so drafting, you get 15 cards in a pack. You usually get a land and a token with it, and you might get generally you'll get a rare or a mythic rare, which is the most rare of the rarities. Then you'll get like 3 uncommons, and the rest are commons. So that's usually a draft pack right there, traditionally. Mm-hmm. And then these new packs that you get, now over the past maybe 2 years, they've gone to having not just the draft boosters, which are classic boosters, but now they also have set boosters, which is more for collecting. And then there's collector boosters, which have a lot of alternate art cards, and you'll get multiple rares in a pack and stuff like that. So, but what I was working towards was these full frame art cards. So that's a card in a pack. I can't play this card. It doesn't say Magic on the back. You know what I'm saying? This is really for collecting only. And this came out of a set booster, by the way. But
it's way bigger than a regular card too, as you can see.
Well, is it?
It's bigger, isn't it? I thought they were bigger.
No, it's exactly
the same size. Wow.
It fits in a pack.
That's true, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought you meant in the booster box.
No. So no. This came out of just a set pack. Okay. Or set booster, I should say. So but check it out again.
Yeah, it's the D&D stat block minus any of the actual crunchy stuff.
Yeah. Again, I need to invest in some real technology if I want to do this more professionally. But anyways, it says this is a Drider, which is kind of like an elf like a drow and a spider smashed together, in some mad scientist laboratory type stuff. But obviously, it was done by a god as a punishment. And so this is a large monstrosity, challenge rating 6, has the armor class, hit points, blah 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 blah. But my only complaint is, sure, it's great, but as a DM, I can't really use this because it doesn't actually tell me what their attacks are.
So it's just a collector piece.
I like it though. I like it. It's really cool.
You like everything.
Yeah, I'm just a fan boy. What can I say? There's another full art card, but this one on the back, it's just kind of like blank, and it says Forgotten Adventures in the Forgotten Realms Art Series 41 out of 81, Horde Robber by Anna Pavleva. And this is one thing I love about all Magic cards, is that at the bottom it says the name of the artist. Like, I actually brought one of my favorite cards here. I don't like, just because I love art, and I even love using art from Magic the Gathering for D&D. So, like, if I were to run a Strixhaven campaign in the future, I'm going to go to the Magic website and grab some art and, show my characters some of the card art, right? Like, why wouldn't I do that? Of course, I have cards in the basement, but right now. But so, yeah, that's one of my favorite cards. Disciple of Bolas, just as a, in terms of art, where, I think I can use this as like, for a D&D player character or something.
Pretty
like
sure I've
that.
seen a warlock of yours with that a card on it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I know it says it's a human wizard, and that was my dilemma, because I'm like, oh, this person doesn't look like a wizard. They look like a Hexblade warlock to me, And maybe that lightning-ish stuff there is an Eldritch Blast that they're just going to weave and throw at somebody.
I looked at that, and I remember when you showed me that, and I thought it was actually Witch Bolt.
Yeah, that's true. I know we had that conversation, and I was considering putting that in my build because that is a warlock spell. Yeah, it is. Yes. Someone here in the chat is saying that there is a creature subtype of warlock. So yeah, that's why I was like really kind of beside myself. And yeah, again, as I was mentioning earlier, there's a lot of reasons why you can put D&D and Magic together, because they have these, subtypes that, are relevant between both properties, like a wizard or a warlock or a ranger, all these cool things. What else did they put in this set? Oh, so I talked about the art cards, the monster stat cards. There's also alternate art cards. And you know what? Let's go and take a look at some.
The
screen.
art. Yeah.
So I'm going to go here and take a look at. All right. So we are looking at, I'm assuming you can see my screen. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we are looking at the alternate art cards on the Magic website. So magic.wizards.com is where you can find all this cool stuff. So these are more of the kind of full frame art cards. You'll notice it doesn't have the full, hard black border like the normal cards do, of which I can actually just, click here. And, well, actually, I'm only sharing the one tab. But what I wanted to show are these cards right here. So these are some of the alternate art cards that you can find in set or collector boosters, I believe, that are inspired by older editions of Dungeons and Dragons and the art of the history of Dungeons and Dragons. Because just like I said, there's like 25 plus years of Magic the Gathering art. There's almost 50 years of D&D art. We're just a few years shy of 50 years total. So lots of cool art and lots of, like I said, the art's beautiful, and you can take a look here and see, all sorts of, great looking cards. And as always, you can see the artist's name at the bottom. And, if you think the art's really cool, you can look them up on like DeviantArt or ArtStation or just, Google or something like that. And, quite often the artists sell prints and stuff. In fact, I actually just bought a print straight from the artist for a Magic card that I thought was really cool last week. And, all the power to the artists, because they're giving us all this really cool stuff. So, other than the alternate art cards, there's of course dragons. So let's see. Oh yeah, so here's the white dragon, for instance. There's a white dragon, red dragon, black dragon. Basically all the schools of Magic. Each of them have a dragon, and they each kind of have their own different abilities, and they're the chromatic dragons, color-based dragons. So they're coming down and they're doing stuff that kind of relates to their color in D&D, not just Magic.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll notice here too that they also have some named dragons.
Yep.
Like here's Icing Death, the Frost Giant. You'll notice mythic rare, and of course the dragons are flying, etc., etc.
Tying back into D&D lore, Icing Death is the white dragon that is trapped inside of the legendary hero's Drizzt scimitar, which is also named Icing Death.
Amazing. Love that. So there's Dritzt's alternate art card right there. Drizzt is pretty cool, and actually when it hits the table, it actually brings down Guinevere, the panther, and which is a legendary cat creature token. Awesome. So there's tons of named art that's in here, or named characters. But also, other than the dragons that are in this set, I don't think that there's alternate art for our dungeons. No, so I'm going to share a different screen. One moment, please. Of the normal cards. And there are dungeon cards here. Dungeon.
Yeah, these are actually very interesting because they don't actually go in your deck. They're kind of like something that starts beside the game, and then the first time you enter the dungeon, it technically comes into play. It's a very interesting new mechanic they added.
Yeah, it is indeed. They've had similar mechanics, in Magic the Gathering, with a lot of enchantment cards that do things over time. So this is, kind of, just taking that in a slightly different direction. So there are a lot of different cards that say venture into the dungeon as their mechanic. And so, hey, you're fighting dragons, you're going into dungeons. And so they've actually named 3 very famous dungeons, all of which can be played in 5th edition. In the middle, the one I use the most is Lost Mine of Phandelver.
And from this, the starter set.
Yes, it is from the starter set. And it is a great adventure to play, just regardless, starter set or not.
Incredible adventure.
Yeah, it is great. It has some really cool Magic items in it too. So yeah, every time you venture into the dungeon, you kind of keep track of where you are going in the dungeon, and some abilities will go off for whatever room of the dungeon you are going in. You go top down through these dungeon cards. You can't go back and forth, and there is definitely a defined, somewhat tree-like structure. If you go down the left, you're going down the left kind of, until you're given another way to go, such that you're never going to get over and back to the right. So not quite like D&D, but because you can go any which way you want, but still a lot of cool stuff. On top of that, they did something else that's cool with it, in that if you have finished a dungeon, certain abilities on cards will pop off as well. So yeah, they've done a lot of cool stuff with the dungeons and the dragons. But even more than that, kind of going back here, there's a lot of things that they've done with flavor text that looks like it's an ability name on the card, but it's not really. So, they've decided to put those in italics to kind of show that. And but they sound like Dungeons and Dragons abilities. So for example, right here, Targ Nar Demon Fang Knoll has this pack tactics. Now, looks like an ability, like the card beside it says flying for Tiamat, right? But it's not, because it's in italics. But if you play Dungeons and Dragons, you know that pack tactics is something, especially dungeon masters know about it, that, a lot of, goblins, gnolls, and other goblinoids.
Just kobolds.
It's just kobolds?
Goblins don't have pack tactics.
Okay, I'm thinking of something else. So yes, pack tactics. Maybe I'm seeing it on Magic the Gathering cards for goblins.
Probably.
Maybe that's what's screwing me up. So pack tactics, you get advantage when you're beside someone
An
else.
ally.
Any ally. So it's kind of like sneak attack in that regard. But here, they've just kind of put a bit of a play on it, and says here, if other creatures have a total power of 6 or greater, then something happens. Another couple you can see here right above, Bewitching Whispers or Whispers of the Grave, again, adding a bit of flavor text in front of the abilities of cards, because, cards usually just say what they do, but they've decided to put this bit of flavor in front of it, using, terms from Dungeons and Dragons, which I thought was really cool.
So
really makes it feel like D&D.
So my favorite flavor text on any of the cards in this set is from the card, the blue card Split the Party. If you want to throw that up on the screen.
Okay, so yes, this is different flavor text, because if you notice, for example, Soul Knife Spy right here in the middle, it says in quotes, this is usually flavor text, and it's usually separated from the what the
game
card
text
can do, right? You see that line that separates it. But check out Split the Party. Yeah, go ahead, Angelo.
Yeah, so when you go to Split the Party, if you bring it back up on screen, the flavor text on Split the Party is simply don't.
Yeah, I think that's the best flavor text I've seen in Magic the Gathering ever.
It's just
ever.
don't.
I mean, just given the context of D&D, but even still, like a one-word flavor text, wow. Powerful. That is the first rule of D&D right there in a card. Like, let's frame that one. Oof, amazing. Is that Zoltan Boros is the artist?
Not sure.
That's a cool name.
Yeah.
Okay. So what else did they do? So they have lots of classic monsters that they've put in here, like the Illithid. Yeah, so the Illithid, or sometimes known as the Mind Flayers. There's Mind Flayers in here. Ooh, Mind Flayer, the card, really cool. They got, Feywild creatures like the Pixies. They have goblins
and gelatinous cubes. They've got they touch all the really cool ones. That card is good.
It's a great card. I'm usually black, red, green type of stuff, but with this set, I've gone black and blue, and gelatinous cube is just too good of a card. I think really good. Yeah, so it says here, when gelatinous cube enters the battlefield, exile target non-ooze creature an opponent controls until gelatinous cube leaves the battlefield. So it's essentially like an enchantment that is blocking them. Except this is a creature card that's doing it, and it kind of brings it over to your side of the battlefield. And then later, if you got enough mana, you basically spend the same mana on the card plus 1 black, and then you can throw it into the owner's graveyard.
You can exile it, I think, right?
Or
does it say graveyard?
No, it's the graveyard.
Okay, I can remember if that one had an exile effect.
Yeah, technically they're exiled while you have control of them.
Oh, okay, that's right.
But generally speaking, with whatever card has control over something, like those enchantments that kind of lockdown cards, they're generally considered exiled. That way you can't do anything to them because you can't grab them from a graveyard because they're kind of out of play. Anything in exile is generally out of play. But of course, it's a game of exceptions. So if something says you can do something, then you can do it. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, gelatinous cube, so good. I think they have a Funko Pop for that type of monster too, which is really cool. So another thing that I noticed was that I really liked was they have kind of like subclass and class names in the creature card names, which is really awesome.
Way of the Open Hand Monk and
Yeah. So here's a Gloomstalker, who I gotta be honest, I thought it would be a black card.
Yeah, having seen that in as a white card is kind of awkward.
It
because
is.
of the flavor of Gloomstalker.
Yeah, but then they have like a half-elf monk, and then Monk of the Open Hand or Moonblessed Cleric.
There's a really good Planeswalker
Paladin.
that goes really well with the Monk of the Open Hand. Brings them onto the battlefield from your deck for free.
Yeah. Someone did that against me, I think today or yesterday, and yeah.
So it does. We had a request to talk a little bit about the Terrasque card.
All right, let's talk about Terrasque.
So first thing I'm going to say is this card is way too expensive to be practical, but the card itself is hilarious.
Okay, so I've zoomed in. How does that look?
That looks pretty good.
Okay, so yeah, Terrasque is like, I'm not going to say it's like the end boss of a game, but it's like the biggest, baddest creature that the end boss is going to put in front of you so that they can run away type of thing.
Yeah, actually, because there's like the Terrasque itself has a couple of key flaws in the D&D game, and then which are somewhat replicated in the Magic the Gathering game. So it has Ward 10. Jeremy, what's Ward in?
Yes. So Ward means that if you try to cast a spell that would affect this creature, you need to do something. In this case, Ward 10 means that you have to spend an additional 10 mana on top of the cost of that spell for it to work. And I just mentioned that because sometimes Ward is not about spending mana. It could be discarding a card or something like that.
Yeah. So again, this card, the fight effect on this card is interesting because it forces it forces them to make a potentially bad trade, but it's still just still a 10/10 big body, and like someone said in chat, it doesn't have trample, which is
a big ability that
Yeah,
allows you to kind of push through.
If this card had trample, I'm sure people would try to play it, but without trample, it's pretty much a dead card.
Yes, because it says whenever it attacks, it fights, basically target creature defending player controls.
Yeah.
But I mean, that just sounds like the Terrasque. It's just looking for somebody to fight.
Yep, it's not a super intelligent creature, and in 5th edition, it's the most overrated monster because a single flying character with a longbow can kill a Terrasque without any issue because the Terrasque has no ranged attacks.
It's true.
It's unfortunate.
It's just how many misses are there going to be?
Yeah, it's 25 AC, which isn't too high at a level where players are probably fighting a Terrasque.
Yeah, and it is the Terrasque.
Yeah.
Hence, it is a legendary creature. And just a side note about legendary creatures is that as a player, you are not allowed to have more than one on the battlefield for yourself. I mean, someone else can play it against you on their side of the battlefield, but as soon as you put down another one, or if someone were to force you to, they basically destroy each other. Which, I mean, if there were 2 Terrasques there, they would probably destroy each other too.
All right, so so now we've got a lot of there's still a lot of stuff in this set that's very interesting. That's really good crossovers for D&D. You've got a lot of legendary characters. You got a lot of cool spells that they added that are flavored off of D&D spells. You've got
magic items.
Yep, you like
bag of holding,
the black staff,
Vorpal sword.
Yeah, there are
even
a lot of really cool.
Healing.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff that they brought in. They did a really good job with this crossover of touching in on a lot of cool things from D&D to Magic the Gathering.
Okay, I want to talk about this for a sec.
Go ahead.
All right.
Oh yeah, I knew this was coming.
Yeah. Okay. I really have one complaint about this set. Why is Mordenkainen in this set? I know it's called Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, and maybe Mordenkainen is on an adventure in the Forgotten Realms, but they are not from the Forgotten Realms originally. They're from Greyhawk, and really for me, like when I was thinking, who's going to be a planeswalker in this set? I was like, oh, Elminster, you know?
You just wanted to be able to kill a minister in a Magic game.
Yes, I do, because I always have it out for Elminster with my characters because they're all like Netherese and stuff. But come on, like it leaves me thinking, oh, we need another D&D set like Mistra's Chosen or something like that. But at the same time, it's just like I want an Eberron Magic the Gathering set too, you know? So
Yeah, me too, really. Everyone's
ah,
got so many cool things.
yeah, totally. Yeah, Keith Baker,
Give me all the artificers
you're out there.
and magic that looks like technology.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Yeah. Magic.
You can check out our Eberron video for more on that. They
Yeah,
did one of those
Eberron is
a couple
another
months ago.
setting. Other cool things that they did here are the classes. So like I'll show you Rogue. Oh, there's so many rogues though. Okay, so yeah, here's the Rogue class. So they did class cards. These are enchantments. So they sit kind of off to the side of the battlefield. And like a lot of enchantments that have been coming out in the past few years, there's certain stages, so rather than just steps per turn, these ones require you to level them up using mana, and they
Yeah,
have
they're not like
different
the old
abilities.
sagas where every turn they
No,
uptick.
exactly. Yeah, no, you got exactly what I was describing. Yep.
So the cool thing about these is that once you play them, it's a card that already does something. It has an enter the battlefield effect, and then later it's a good way to sink mana if you have leftover mana or it on your turn should you want to.
Yeah, and there's just so many synergies between these class cards and other similarly colored cards in the set. So like I've got Xanathar, the Beholder, in one of my first packs.
That card will ruin friendships.
I hope not. But like I just fell in love with that card and built a deck around it, and that's what I've been playing for a while. And there's so many rogues in this set as well that just mesh so well. And this rogue class works a lot like the Xanathar card, because the Xanathar card, when it's your turn, basically the person across the table from you can't cast spells against you, assuming you're playing one-on-one. Otherwise, you're just picking one opponent, and you're essentially taking cards off the top of their library or their deck, and you get to play them. And this card is very similar. Whenever a creature you control deals damage to a player, you exile the top card of the library face down, so that only you can see it, or have access to look at what it is. They don't know what you've taken from them. But let me tell you, if they saw what you were taking from them, they would hate you. And then you give your creatures menace, which means 2 people got to block the minimum. And then lastly, much like Xanathar, you can then start playing those exiled cards. And if you've put a lot of cards in there, you essentially have this unlimited hand size of all these exiled cards along with your regular hand. So, great synergy that, maybe you can't get Xanathar out, but maybe you got this class card out, and it just, yeah, it could potentially end relationships. I mean, certainly I've had a lot of people quit the game when I put either of these cards, into effect. Because when you start playing other people's cards against them,
it hurts some.
Totally.
The Xanathar costs 6 mana, as someone in chat was saying.
Yes.
It's pretty expensive, but it's one of those bombs that once it hits the battlefield, it's really
But
hard
you
to
can
deal
get it
with
out so fast.
unless you're about to die to aggro. Like that's like
Yeah, but at the same time, like I can get that out on turn 4, like really easily
with treasure tokens and such. Yeah,
Exactly.
you can pop it out pretty quickly.
Yeah. So, but again, it depends how you want to play, and if you're out to grief people, of which I'm not. I just love the rogues class, and now I want to make a rogue.
Well,
And
that's kind of been Dimir,
D&D.
which is blue black and Magic is kind of thing for a few sets now, where they're just incredibly annoying.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not sorry.
No, of course not.
Okay, so that's pretty much it. I mean, we could go talking about the different physical products and commander decks and stuff, but really we just wanted to share our love of both Magic the Gathering and D&D now that they've finally kind of cross-pollinated, so to speak, now that we have D&D MTG books and an MTG D&D card set. So hopefully they do more in the future. I think they're only going to do more if people go out and play it and buy it and tell them that they love it. So if you haven't done so, I'd say go for it.
I also want to just quickly point out, just while we're still on video, is that what I know someone in chat said again is that ironically the best class card in Magic the Gathering is the Ranger.
Why? What are you trying to say about D&D Ranger class?
D&D Ranger. I don't get me wrong. I love Rangers.
So do
I like Rangers more than a lot of other classes.
Same.
But they are slightly lower on the power scale than most of the classes.
Have you played a Gloomstalker?
Yes, but the Gloomstalker is good for the first round.
Nah, they're invisible, dude.
Yeah, but that also means they get hit by Spirit Guardians.
Maybe. Most of the time, I'm just popping around in the shadows.
Yeah, well, like I said, any party that doesn't have a light source is in trouble usually anyway, so.
I guess. I'm just going to stay away from the party, and you're not even going to be able to see me when I need to be healed. Like,
exactly.
Healed
when you go down in the dark, well, sorry, I guess you got to make those death saves.
Totally.
I'll light a torch and try to find you.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of cool, though. Yeah, Aragorn is a ranger by title.
We're gonna do the class video again because we need to record it.
Yeah,
we'll talk about Beastmaster because that subclass is a mistake.
They suggested they were going to replace it with Unearthed Arcana, but that just
revised Ranger has been sitting there for like 3 years.
Yeah, I got to be honest, I don't want a 6th edition at this
point. Not anytime soon, really. This edition's really good. I don't know anything
to me,
about.
It's really young because we're still so deep in the Forgotten Realms.
I have no idea how long older editions lasted. I'm usually about 10 years, 12 years, except for 4th, I think, which was really short.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, because they can fix it in 6th edition. It's kind of too late for 5th, I think.
Well, what they did was they gave in Tasha's specifically. Like, I really like the 2 subclasses they put in Tasha's. They're both really good, and that helps a lot. Like I said, Ranger's fine. It's just that everyone has such a very bad perception because when the game came out, Beastmaster, which is which was one of 2 options because it was only Hunter and Beastmaster in the player's handbook.
That's right.
So you were playing a Hunter or you were upset.
Pretty much, and you wanted your Dritz build, and you
just couldn't do it because hilariously, the dual wield scimitars, you couldn't then use your bonus action to make your pet do anything.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of 2-weapon fighting. I just don't get it.
2-weapon fighting,
the way that it's implemented, like in movies and TV shows and stuff, 2-weapon fighting looks amazing, but to me, it's not OP like you think it should be in D&D.
No, it's actually an official non-official class because it's from the Wildmount book, the Echo Knight.
Okay.
The flavor is better than 2-weapon fighting when you just get the free extra attack from your Echo.
Sure. Yeah, totally. Yeah, but the answer is easy. Play more Magic the Gathering, play more D&D.
Always. Just
have fun. Yes, the rule of fun, exactly. But for now, let's just hope we get the Fan Expo and we can play some D&D in person.
We hope to see anyone from the GTA, or if you're traveling and you can travel because restrictions are hopefully eased by then, we want to see everybody out there.
For sure. And if not, you can join us online check us out at unitethefactions.com, or of course, come back and see us, later in the month or in the months to come at meetups.fanexpohq.com, where we're doing, a couple different show types, this month and in the future.
Yep. So our next show is going to be August 27th, where we're going to be doing a brand new thing that we're going to try called Monster of the Month, which is we pick a monster group or a type of monster or a couple different types of monsters, put them together, run a quick encounter with a couple of really experienced DMs and some people from the audience who sign up ahead of time and would like to be on the show with us. And then we will be taking that and running at about a half-hour encounter and then talking about the ins and outs of being the DM and using those monsters and being the players and facing those monsters and kind of how that dynamic works so you can be better prepared at your tables.
Sounds awesome. Okay, well, we're going to stop recording and say bye for now. But if you're here live, stick around for 1 sec. We have something for you. All right. Bye for now.